Right, good evening once again, everyone. Welcome to Digital Z Hub. Okay, so what I have on my screen was actually where we stopped. We started looking at how to write and execute SQL query statements using up to 4 different types of SQL languages. Remember, there was this particular one that was escaping my memory, and I think I found it. It is DDL, which stands for Data Definition Language. Data Definition Language. The DDL is used to define, create, modify, and delete database structure such as table, index, and even schemas. So remember, we also talk about under the DDL, I mentioned several commands. Remember, I told us that what we are learning or what we learned in that particular section was more of understanding SQL language itself without directly relating it to the field of data analytics, right? Under this particular type of SQL language, I mentioned some commonly used commands, such as create, and you can see that we use create as one of the keywords in developing or designing this table. And then we also have alter, that is to make some changes. All these we shall be looking at them as we proceed. Then we have drop. In SQL, whenever you hear the term drop, it means delete. So at the end of the day, after you have created your table, you can decide to drop it. So then you are going to use one of these DDL SQL language, which is drop, and then truncate, which is also to destroy. Now we stopped at just to go through what we did in that class that led to what we have on the screen. I started by explaining the workbench, which happens to be the SQL framework we are using to write and execute SQL query languages or statements. So we started by looking at how to create database. In fact, we look at comment. So I'm still going to be using comment. So let me just quickly go up. So we started by looking at comments, which I said in SQL, the way you represent comments is by writing 2 hyphen, and then you space, then followed by your comments. So all these write-ups are comments, which means that they are non-executable scripts or code within this development environment. And then the next thing we learned was how to design a database, because we were taught that database, in fact, we were taught that the SQL is a programming language which is used for creating and managing database. So we started by looking at how to write SQL query statement or SQL command to create database. And that was what led to what? Using 2 SQL words, keywords such as the create and the database, and then followed by the name of our database, which is employees. So this was the syntax I show us that can be used to create a database. And then after that, we look at how to use a database. Remember, before this class, that particular session where I explained the workbench interface structure, I have told us that the whole of this session is called the schemas. Now, and I told us that the schema lists out the name of your database. So all this we are seeing here, they are actually what? Schemas or database. And inside database, you have a table. The inside table, you have records. So now, the next command we executed was, how do I write an SQL query statement to select or to use a particular database from my schema? So at the moment, if I am asked which of these database is active, the one that is bolded. So how did we activate it or selected it? We simply use what, as we can see here, I said here is a code you write, which is what, using the use keyword followed by the name of the database. So if I execute this particular section using this command, because I'm executing just a single line code, and then you see that the selection will automatically shift from the sys to what, employee, which means that at the moment, any SQL query statement you execute is going to actually be executed under this selected database. And I also show us another method you can use to select a database, because it's one of those fundamentals you must understand. You must know how to select a database under which you want to execute your query statement. Now, which was you just double clicking on it. So once you double click, that is equivalent to you writing use the name of what, the database. So let me go back to employee. Now the next code that we executed was how do I check how many, okay, I think the next code was how to create a table. I told her that in SQL, table is the collection of related fields. So which means that the field here are the headers or the labels that actually describe your data what properties. Now, for example, we wrote an SQL statement using two keywords such as create table. These are two keywords. Remember, anytime I use the word keyword, I'm talking about an inbuilt command, a name of a function that has already been what programmed in the language. So for example, now the create is an inbuilt command. Table is also what, an inbuilt. So that is why they are referred to as keywords. Now, employee or EMP is the name of the table. Now, but before we started creating this table, we first of all use the database under which we are creating or adding the table. So which means that at the end of running this code, the table will be created under what? Employees what? Database. All right, and this is the structure of writing SQL query statement for creating tables. So you start with create table, then followed by the name, then open the parenthesis bracket, then you declare the headers, the labels, or the attributes of that table. So I started with employees ID, and I told us in that session that whenever you are defining your table structure, understand three things: the field name, which is the attribute, the data type that will be stored under that attribute, and the constraint. The constraints are like you stating some limitation, some restriction on what can happen under a selected word or defined attribute. For example, here, there's a place where I used it. I think I use a unique. Let me see. I don't know if it was this. Okay, like here now, look at this. We specify the behavior of this word attribute. Now, this is the attribute itself. This int is where we stated the type of data that this particular column or header will receive. We stated it to be what? Integer, which means whole number in programming. Now, auto increment. Auto increment is a kind of a constraint. So which means that we simply said that this table can increase it can increase. That is, if, for example, we created a table and the table came with like 20 rows, which means it can only take 20 records. So once you activate that auto increment, what we are saying is that as the records keep coming, the table should keep what? Expanding without you coming here to manually what? Add more rows. Now, first name is the attribute name, and then the varchar, which is a variable character, is a constructor of a data type called what? String, where we define the type of where we define the field size. We refer to it as a constructor for specifying the field size of the record that could come under what? The first name. So by stating 50, what you are practically saying is that any name that will be submitted to this field cannot be longer than what? 50 what? Letters. That is what you are saying. And I told us that you have the privilege of using up to 255, which happen to be the largest or the highest field size of your entry. But I use 50 because I believe that there's no name that its size will definitely want exceed this. All right. Now, for example, if I shift here, this is where I am going now. Before I put the comma, if I come here and I say unique, I added it that very day, and I remove it. If I add this unique is a constraint, which says that what? A name cannot be repeated in this table, which means that if somebody have, let's say is a form from a website that is dumping the record in this table within your database. So if Prosper fill the form first and submit that name Prosper, if another person fill the form and the person's name happen to be Prosper, is not going to accept it because you have already constrained this particular attribute to what? Unique, that it cannot receive the same value. So we actually use this in the case of email address. That is the best scenario, best place to use it in order to validate so that two different persons does not submit the same email, right? But I just wanted us to understand it there. So that is a constraint. So it's your choice. You can decide not to add constraint or you add a constraint. Now, so that is how we created this particular table. Now, where we are going to continue this class for is how do we add record, how to write SQL word, a query statement to populate that table with what? A record. For example, we executed this line of code, which is used to check or to list out how many tables are in a database. For example, remember that you must have used, which means you must have selected the database before running this command. Now, if I run this, that is going to display the list of the name of that database, which is what? Tables in employees, and it happened to be what? Only one. All right? Because if you are given a website that has an interface like this, and that website have like up to 20 tables, and you are asked to analyze data from one of the tables, you are going to first of all check the list of tables. Then from there, you will now be able to identify the particular table that represents your data set. Now remember that as a data analyst, whenever the word table will now replace or will represent your data set. All right. So that was the code we wrote to check the list of tables within a database. And then I said, I gave us an assignment, but I said in our next class, which is this very class, we are going to continue from how to write SQL query statement to add record to that table, because we discovered that when we try to call record from this table, if I write an SQL query statement to display all the record, for example, if I say select all, The asterisk here means all. If I say select all, if I say select all from the EMP, which means that what? From this table, and I end my code. You see that if you run it, it's going to output what? The headers without record. So which means that we have to write a SQL query statement to add records to this table. And that is where we are going to continue this class from. All right. Because of time, I'll give us room to ask questions, but perhaps you have any question on the revision I just did now. Let me give us 2 minutes to attend to that. If you have questions within 2 minutes on this, so I expect to have gone through the video to master all these I just went through. But if you have questions, 2 minutes, there's no question, then we proceed to adding records to the table. Any question? Kosi, I think you sent a message that you were having issue. I don't know if what I've explained now, you have detected your errors.
I missed some of the step where you got this thing from, and maybe I'll just watch the video again, but I haven't corrected mine because I even tried executing it. If I do it for the first time, it will go. Then if I do it again, it will say error.
Okay, so just pay attention. After some time, I'll give you room to share your screen and look into that. Okay, so now let's quickly dive into how to add record, how to insert record inside the table we just created. Table with how many fields? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how do we add record into this? So we are going to start by writing, by entering a keyword which says insert. Remember, insert is under the data manipulation word language. The data manipulation language is what? DML. We discussed all this in the last class. So insert into. So this is another keyword. Then you have to specify the name of the table you are adding the record in. And that is why it's very important that you must have run that code that will have displayed that show table so that you know the name of the table, because at this point you must specify that table. And thank God that when we run that code, the name of the table is EMP. All right. Now, after that, the next thing you are going to do is to open a parenthesis bracket. So the best thing to do is to, as soon as you open it like this, you close it. As soon as you open it, you close it. Now, inside this very one that you open, the first bracket, we are going to define the headers, the attributes in that table. We are going to call them. After calling them, we will now say, okay, based on these headers that have been called, now add value into them. And that is why running this last code is very important. With this now, I can see the list of the headers. So I will follow that order and list them one after the other. So the first one is EMP. First one is EMP, EMP, that is employee, just the way it is, employee's ID, that is the first one. Now you just separate it with a comma. Now followed by the next one, which is first name, the way it is written in your table, first underscore what, capital letter N, that is name, comma, followed by the next one, the way it is also, email, then comma, then followed by department, the way it is also. Make sure that you are taking into consideration the case. So department, then comma, followed by DOB. So after the last one, you don't need to enter what? A comma. Now you come outside this particular one, you go down, then you will now write values. So this values is a keyword, which means that you want to add value to those highlighted word field name. Now the value also need to be in another word, parenthesis bracket. Just make sure that you understand the structure. That is very simple. Once you understand the structure, then you flow with the trend. Now, the values are some of them are string, where the value is a string. We know the standard. You quote it with single quotes or double quotes. Where the values are integer, you leave them what? Without closing them. So let's observe that. So the first value I'm supplying under ID. ID is going to be a number, which is what? Number 1. That is ID. So there's no point of me what? Quoting it. So I'll put a comma. So the next one is first name. So first name is a string. So I'll put it in a string. So first name is let's say Eloho. Then put a comma. So the next one, which is email is a string as well, which could be prosper. Let's just say at yahoo.com. So the next one is departments, which is also a string. So do the same. Departments, let's say sales departments. So the next one is date. So date is a special word. So what I'm going to do here, but I'll capture it as a string. Let's just say, how will I write my dates now? Okay, let me see. So let's say date is days slash, let me follow the standard method, 2026, second, let's say 4. So all I need to do is to repeat this structure. Now you are supposed to just want to save our time, copy. You go down after the first line. So let's say I paste again, and then let me change this to 2. Then you supply another name. So since we did not put constraint, so this is not going to be an issue. Now, the complaint is having here now is this. Just a minute, coming. Now, you are not supposed to write all of them in one bracket. So you copy, Control C. So each of the record should take a new line. And then when you are done with this first one, you have to put a comma to show that you are still writing. You have to put a comma. So let's say I change this to 2, and I update this name to another name. Let's say Prosper. And then let's say this email, let me just add something to it. Let's say this is security department. Then the date, let's say so it's just a minute. Just give me a minute, please. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Greenway. Yeah, please say that there's no comma between this. That's a good observation. I think the same thing here. All right, so you will just continue this process like this until you get to the last one. Let's say I'm having two records. Once you get to the last one, you don't put comma, you put what? A semicolon to show that you are closing your code. Now, let's run it and see what we get. Now, like the advice I gave to us the other time, where you have multiple lines of code, it's advisable that you should not use the single line execution. Just select so that all the line, because this line depends on this line. So if you execute this line, you might be getting error where your framework is not sensitive enough, because at that point, it could be waiting for this particular command to be executed. So the best thing to do is to highlight the whole of the code and then click on what? This option, or you press Control Enter, like I told us. Now, once you see, you must always check here. Once, as you can see here, you can see that we have an information that says that what? 2 rows, which means that we have successfully what? Created. Now, let's run that code again to check. Let's write an SQL code. So display this record. We want to fetch this record from that table. All right, so let me put it in comment for those that are writing. So the task is that now that you have added record to that table called what? EMP. Now write an SQL query statement to fetch all the record in that table. To fetch all the record in that table. Let's say this is a task, right? Because as a data analyst, if you don't know how to call the records, all the record from your data, from the table, you may not be able to draft your analysis question, because we are going to study that data. So that is why you must know how to write this. Now, the way you are going to speak the language is that you are going to use one of the DML language, data manipulation what? Language, which I said it constitutes command for what? For modification, for retrieving of what? Data. For example, so I'm going to say select. Now in SQL, the way you tell SQL that, okay, I want all the records in that table, not just some. We'll get to that point where we will now start writing conditional query statements. But at the moment, I want to see all the records. Now, the interpretation of that all in SQL is this asterisk. This asterisk means all. Then, if you are saying that you want to select record from a table, you must tell us, you must use a keyword that points to the location where the records are coming from. That is where you now use another keyword from. Then, that is why it's also good for you to know the table name, which is what? AMP. And then you end the code. So if I run it now, you see that what? It called out the table that was empty the other time, and also displaying what? The date that, I'm sorry, the records that we have added. So I'm going to give us, those that are joining with their laptop, I'm going to give us 5 minutes to try this and then get back to me. And then if you have any question within that same 5 minutes, you can also ask. So just create a table. I believe if you have done the previous assignment, you must have gotten to the point where you must have set up your database and your table. So just go ahead and insert your records. So the next 5 minutes, I'm waiting for response. And if you have questions, you can also ask. Let me know those that are working now, please. So that I will not
working,
just.
sir.
I'm
I'm working.
Okay. You can share your screen now. You can hear me, please go ahead and share your screen. Can you hear me? Oh, she's out. Do I have any other person who is writing? Kosi, I think you can share your screen now if while we are waiting for her to join back. Okay, Miss Hannah, you are back.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
asking.
sorry, sir. My laptop went off, so I won't be able to share.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to find out if she was the only person writing so that we don't waste our time. You guys are not responding. No. Was she the only person writing the code?
Mr. Foster, please, I have a question.
Okay, ask your question.
Okay, now that you have created this table and then called the records,
Hmm.
how do we confirm that auto increment that you do?
How do you confirm auto
That
increments?
auto increment, like, yeah. Now, if I want to add another line of record, should I add employee ID or just add first name? Then the auto increment will add the employee ID automatically.
No. This one you are not, this is manual. The platform at which we are running it. Normally, the way it works is that if it is a website, the record will be submitted from the front end. So that is where it can be programmed that it will configure all that by itself. But here, like I told you, we are just emulating that process. Our work is not supposed to be developing record here. We are not supposed to be creating record here. The record will have been created somewhere else. Then you just load it in and do your analysis. So that's why we are manually entering and the auto increment does not mean that we to automatically increase the ID. The auto increment here is that to keep expanding the table so that the table does not have a limit. Are you following?
Okay. Okay,
So
yeah,
that is
yeah.
not what my auto increment. Okay, so
Okay.
now let's still look at few data manipulating language. For example, you have created a table like this. And for one reason or the other, you are asked to delete or to drop. Remember, I mentioned drop. We are asked to drop a particular column from this table. Let's say we no longer need the DOB. So how do we write an SQL statement to do that? So comments, write an SQL query statements to drop column. So these are the idea. Even when we start working with our own data, maybe you are performing data cleaning and you want to remove a particular column. This is how you are still going to do it. That is why I'm trying to focus on this thing so that we know them from this aspect of learning the language. So by the time we start working with data, you will discover that it will be easier for us to flow with how to drop what column or attributes. Now, the query statement here, you are going to remove a column permanently from a table. you are going to use two additional keywords that we have not used. And these two keywords, they are from DMN language, data manipulation language, such as alter and what? Drop. Now, which means we are going to say alter. So we are going to start with this keyword like this. Then alter table. What you want to tamper with is table, which is another keyword. Then followed by the table name. Remember that we know the table name, which is EMP. Now, somebody will have asked, we want to delete a column. How come we are calling table? Don't forget the table structure that I told us is that you have the table structure is made up of column. So the column is an entity under the table. So you must reference the table under which you want to delete a column from. That is why you are writing this first line of code. Then you go down to the next line. Then you will now specify what you want to do in that table that you just highlighted. You say, okay, I want to drop. So this is another DNN language now. Drop what? What you want to drop is column. So column is a keyword, then followed by the column name, exactly the way it is in the data. So we are dropping what? DOB, for example. And then I can now end my code. So if I execute these two lines of code, you can as well write them on the same line. No, all you need to do after that EN is space. So just that I just want my code to be well formatted. Now, like I told you, this particular line execution depends on what this one must have done. So in this case, I would advise us to always select both of them. And then when you execute, you check your output, you see that what? Look at this, alter table employee drop column what? DOB. So that is an assurance that what? That particular column has been what? Truncated or removed from the table. But we have to check. How do we now check? Sorry, I'm a bit far because I'm trying to cover the class we missed yesterday. Now, to check if the command has been executed. Now, we are going to write an SQL query statement to fetch all the record from the table. From there, we will now find out whether that column is actually what? There. Right? So, we'll just say select. You know, we have written this code here. I will have just come here and run it again, but I just want us to get used to it. Select from EMP, right? Which means that we are interested in seeing all the records. So if I run it, you see that what? Now we have the same table output, but this time around, DOB has gone. Let me get a response if that is clear. So I just used two DML language now. I hope that is I hope that is clear. I hope that is clear. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
And
sir.
I hope you are writing your script. So please,
Yeah.
because this assignment is going to be mandatory assignment. If you are not executing it now, if you have your pen and paper and be writing it, I may not upload today. And tomorrow I'll be very busy. So I'm not sure if the video will get to us tomorrow, except I am sure of Monday. Now, so that is how to delete. That is how to delete. So you can say what we the keywords that we use there. So let's say, how do we now modify? I am not deleting. This time around, I'm given a data set that comes with a column that is defined with two words. And SQL does not allow space in between two words, just like Python. So now I don't want to delete the column. and I don't want to go back to Microsoft Excel. So I just want to modify a particular column. I just want to modify that column. So how do I do that? So how to modify table attributes. Table attributes or label. That is. So for example, e.g., thank God that we are seeing the attribute here. E.g., we have department, and I want to modify it to what? DEPT. I don't want to write it in full. So let's say comment, the task here is that what? Change department to depth. So that is exactly what I want to do. So here we are still going to use that alter, but we are going to add another data manipulation language keyword, which we have not used, called what? Modify. So I'm using all this to expose you to this, and then let's look at it. So we start with alter again, alter. That same line of code that we wrote there is still going to come here. Alter which table? Alter what? Table. What is the name of the table? EMP. So that is all on that line. You go to the next line. Then we are now using the keyword modify. Modify which of the column? What are you modifying? We are modifying column. So I will say what? Modify column. Modify column. Now, what is the column original name? What is the name of the column that you have there before the new one you are bringing in? That will be the question. So in this case, we are modifying which of the name? We are modifying what are we modifying? We are modifying department, right? We are modifying department. Yes, we are modifying department. Why am I having this? Okay, so we are modifying departments. We are modifying departments. And remember that the department you are modifying, you have to state the data type. What type of data type is there? We need to understand it. What type of data type? Now, we use that same constructor, which is the variable character, which is varchar, and then we have to specify the field strength or length. So let's say 100. Let's say I put 100 here. Now, just want to confirm whether this syntax will go with MySQL, because most of these are a little too different depending on the platform you are using, whether this one goes with Workbench. Just give me 1 minute. Let me confirm if this syntax will go with. This syntax it won't work with this, so we are going to work with this platform. Let's look at the motive is different from what we want to use here. So here we are going to use a different keyword, which is rename, not this, because we want to change. So we are renaming column. We are renaming which of the column. So the name of the column that you have in there that you want to change is surprise, which is we are renaming departments. Then we are using the keyword called what? To depth. So this is how you write it. Very simple. So we can't go with that word modify. That was not what we were trying to do. So if I run it now, let's run these 2 lines of code and see if by the time we call back that particular table, whether so we get an output here that says what alter table, rename, whatever. So now let's go and run this code again. So I don't need to write it again because I've written it somewhere. So in this case, I will just use that single line execution. So I'll just click on that line, specify that it is only that line that I want to execute. So by the time you run it, you see that what you have successfully changed the department to what depth using how many keywords we use there, which you need to pay more attention. Rename, and then you have to specify what you want to rename by saying column, then followed by the old name, and then you say to, then the new name. So very simple. I hope that is clear. Is it clear? Let me get the response.
Yes, sir.
All right. So Hannah is out. Kosi, are you running your code now? Is Kosi still here? I promised to check your code. I wanted to just look at it. It is something that I can quickly attend to you before we proceed. All right, so now the next we want to learn, I just want us to play around those commands. So another thing is that, let's say I want to display only the column or the attributes in my table for me to be able to know what type of data they are actually holding. So let me put it here. All right. An SQL query statements to check table attributes, data type. Because why this is very important is that there are times that you are trying to perform calculation with values under a column and maybe like number, which you expect to be integer, and you are doing a kind of addition, but the addition is throwing error. So you need to just hold on and check whether is SQL actually recognizing these values as number or string, so that you know what you are doing. So in that case, you are going to just want to be sure of the code that will go with this workbench. So we can just say table let's see. This work. Let me check the one that will go with this particular one also, so that we can be on the same page. So we are using workbench, though this work with workbench and the SQL server and most of them. Now, what we are going to do, we want to describe a table. So we are going to use this. Describe followed by the name of the table. So the name of the table, we want to describe what AMP. So this is the syntax that will go with if you are using MySQL. Now, if you run it, you see that it will call out only, not this time around, it's not the records that you are interested in. You just want to know the data type. So you can now see the list of data type. Now you know that under employee, you have integer. Under first name, you have variable character. Email, you also have variable character. Department, you have variable character. And then you also specify that what there was no constraint, which means that they can be empty, like I explained in the first class. So these are some of the basic things that we need to master. Now, the next thing we are going to learn now is how do we prepare our data set and then load the data set into the SQL workbench before you can start your analysis. So what we have been learning since they are simply the basic, some of the things you need to understand, whether you are learning SQL for data analysis or not. So that at the end of the day, when you come across jobs that specify database administrator, you can perform some of these tasks that we have performed so far. But now we are shifting into the reason why we are here, which is for data analysis. And as usual, you know that one of your first responsibility as a data analyst is for you to what? To gather your data. So let's assume that you are given a data set, which could be any of those data sets we have been working with. Like I told us in one of those sessions, you see all these things that we have done, it's just like 50% of them that actually pertain to you directly. Like that aspect of creating a table, that is not your business as a data analyst, because the data set itself that will be sent to you represent the table and the record. So you are not going to engage yourself in creating the table, in adding record. That is not going to be your business. But your business will definitely be creating a database before you can load that data set as equivalent to what? To the table that we created. Now, so diving into that aspect now, pay good attention to this aspect, because this is the beginning of your journey when they give you a website to what? To analyze data from. Now, we are looking at how to prepare external, how to prepare and slash how to prepare and load external data sets for analysis. Now, we must understand that whatever data set you are given that you want to bring here to work must be in two formats. It's either in SQL format or CSV. Take note of that. Your data must either be in SQL or CSV. So if somebody sends a pure Excel data set for you to analyze, remember when we were in Excel, I have taught you guys how you can convert it. So, but let me just go through that again. So I'm going to leave here for now and sort out the data. So let's assume that I am given, let me look for a particular data. Let me look for a particular data to work with. So let's say, where do I have my data here? Okay, I think I have my raw data. So let's assume the company has given me my data and I have them stored here. So I'm going to open them in a cell. For example, if I'm not sure of the format, so let's say I want to go with data 3. So every one of you must get to this place before the next class. On a serious note, please. I wouldn't want us to learn this the way some of us were not doing practicals in Excel. Now, so what I'm going to do here, this is a sheet where I have performed some analysis, but I have, let me see what is happening here. I don't think this is not the complete data. So let me check another one. Let me check Amazon, and this should be. Okay, so this is, so let me take my, to have data here. Good. So let's assume that I'm taking this data. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll copy the data to a new sheet. Select the entire data, Ctrl+C, then Ctrl+N to open a new sheet, and then Ctrl+V to paste it. Okay, so now there are certain things you need to do which still falls under the preparation. If you don't want to write those codes, remember that code, that was the reason why I took my time to explain certain things to us. You are going to see the reason why you can as well help yourself in Excel so that you can save yourself from writing those DML languages. So let me just increase the, I just want to increase the column so that I can see the headers very well. And I want to increase them at once. So that is why I highlighted the entire data. And then I'm going to home. So from home, I'm going to format. And then I'll say I want to adjust my color width. The current width is 8.43. So I want to expand them to what? 12. Okay, so that we, even with that, can still see some headers very well. So let me give it 14. Okay, so now why I wanted to see, you can see that this says channel, there is space between says and what? Channel. So SQL is going to have challenge with working when we start performing analysis that requires selecting that header. Because there is that space, we are going to face some constraints. Though there's a way we can rectify it, but it's either you save yourself stress or you consider the stress over there. Now, this is one thing you can do here. You can come here and manually to help yourself and manually what? Either add the underscore or you merge them together. Now, remember that if you don't do what I did here now, when you load this data into SQL platform, you are going to use that last command that we ran, which is what? Rename, for you to be able to what? To edit this. So your choice is your choice that determines. But here, I just want to quickly sort it out here by adding underscore because it's part of the preparation that I'm talking about. So you must, make sure that your data is properly what? Standardized in a way that it can correspond with the SQL language. So I will just take few of them and then take all there, but your own make sure that you do everything. But I would like to work on all the fields that will likely work with. Let me jump to total profit. So somebody would like to ask that, sir, if I'm given data set that exceed a cell capacity and is already saved in CSV, it means you cannot open it here and do all this editing. So that is why I show you that method. So which means you have no choice than to adopt the using the DML language to modify. So, but since this data is still within the range of data a cell can handle, that's why I'm doing it here. So definitely I'm going to work with this also. With this part of preparing your data before loading it into SQL. Now I'll save. Remember I said it should be saved in CSV format. Do not forget. So I'll come to see, I'll come to save as, then choose, I want to save it back to this folder with another name, let's say what, new. And please, where you are naming your data, because this name will represent your table name. Don't forget. Do not name your table with 2 words without adding underscore. Let's say what, new data. Please, this should be avoided. Because by the time you want to select that table, just like the way we are trying to call record from the table that requires select from. Now, if there is space, it's going to what? Have issues. So it's better you name it, give it one name. That is the advice I normally give to students. Just use a single word to name your table. And then this is where you will now choose the format. Currently, this is what? Excel file. So I'll click here and then switch it to what? Comma delimited, which is this one. And then you save it. So now that you have saved it, let's go and learn how to load this data into our SQL development environment. So I'm going back to my workbench. So the first thing I'm going to do I'll create a database. I just want to run through this again so that you understand it, because the table, which is a data set, must come into a database. So that data set does not represent your database. So I'll now write what create, part of what we have treated, create, let's say, create database. Both of them are keyword. The name of the database is what? Data, let's say what? Data DB, for example, data DB. Then you end it there. Then you run your code. Now, which means that what? You have just created another database. Right? Now, why did I create that database? Because I want to load that data inside it. I don't want to load it inside any of this. Now, but I have to refresh here to see the name of that database here. Now, if you click here now, you see that what? You can see that this table here does not have this arrow like we have it here. So whenever you expand your database and this table structure does not have this arrow, it tells you that what? That database does not have a table. So which means that that data set that we just created now, that data set that we just prepared now, is what we come in here as a table under this. But before I do that, so I will now write an SQL query statement, write SQL command to use the just created database. You must select it. So that is where you now use followed by the name of that database, which is what? data DB. Now you end your code. Then I execute it. You can see that what is now selected. Once you are in that database, now you can now come to this table structure here, this table here. Right click on it. Then select what? Table data import wizard. That is, I want to bring in that data here for me to perform my analysis. Please, I need to get a response whether we are still following, please.
I'm following, sir.
Okay. So now,
Yes, sir.
okay. So now you click here. Once you click, it's going to open this wizard. Then you will now select what? Browse. Then from browse is asking for where do you have your data. Remember, I have it on desktop inside a folder called my raw data. Let me check. I think it's this. Now this is the data. You tap it and then click what? Okay. Now, before bringing this data, there's something that I pointed our attention to, that you must have changed this place to what? Do not limit. Because if this data is more than that 1,000 or 10,000 that was there, it means that it's going to cut off, it's going to take what? That 10,000 and throw the rest away. So before you before you bring in your data, make sure that you update this place to what? Do not limit, so I can pull the entire data. Now, once you have done that, you click on next. Now, the moment you click on next, we have this option. Now, I want to explain when to use them. Now, this one says what? Use existing table. If you click here now, let's say under this database, we have written that code that we wrote, create table, the name. So which means that what? You have created a table and then you just want to pour the record in your data set into the table already existing in your what? SQL. So you shouldn't go with this because the data set itself is coming as a table. So our intention is not to switch the record into another table. So that is when, in case you have it in that scenario, that is when, in fact, if there is any table under this database, and even I'm using this particular database that we use now, where we created that table, by the time you click here, you will see the list of those tables. So from there, you now point to which one you want to pour the record into. But why it's showing empty? Because SQL have detected that there is no even table existing under what? This data DB database. I hope that is clear. Can I get a response from one person at least? Is that
Yes, sir.
good? Now here it says create new table. Yes, and you can see the name of the database. If you click here, you see all the database that you have there. So you must be sure that whatever name that is shown here is the database you actually intend to create this data into. So in this case, I am good to go. And this is the name of what the data I am bringing. Now we have this option that says drop table if exists. Let's say you are trying to, bring this, you are trying to load this data as new. New become the table now. In case it's already existing, you are saying that it should what override or it should what delete it. So make sure that you don't select it if the situation is not that. And then I click on what next. Now the next thing SQL will do is to preview the data types. You see the reason why I walk us through that manual. Now you understand what is data type, because we declared it there as what variable character and integer. So this data that you are bringing now, look at how SQL is converting. Region is same region as text, country as text. If you click here, you will see those other data type. But eventually you want to, where SQL have switched integer to string. And you know that if SQL have switched it to what? Switch string to integer, integer to string. By the time we start writing SQL aggregate function, like we want to calculate sum of values under it, because they will be seen as string instead of number, you'll be getting error. So that is why when you are loading your data, you have to make sure that you have the corresponding information. Like here now, order of date is telling me that what is text, which is not text. So I can now come here and change it to what date and time. You can see the way I am correcting it. So that because if you load this data there as is date, but it's going to be loaded there as text. When you start writing some command that have to interpret the record as date, you start having error. So you check very well before you load. So if anyone is not corresponding, so you can see that unit sold is being interpreted as integer. Then our unit price double. So I'm okay here, because anywhere you see integer means what? Whole number. Anywhere you see double, it means what? Floats. So which means the values we have there, they are actually floats, like all this. You have decimal unit. So all these are corresponding. So now with all this, I have corrected my date. Then
Sir, please, sir, hold on. Please set your ship date. Ship date is showing text.
Is that what? Okay.
The ship date is showing text.
Where is it?
Just go up a little, come down a little bit, come down.
Okay, good. So let's also change it to date and time. Thank you for that observation. Okay. Right. So now you now click on what? Next, you have sorted that. Now SQL is telling you that once you click on next, two different commands will be executed. The first one is going to prepare the import, and the second one is going to what? Load the data. So you say, okay, so you click on next, and then you observe the operation. Successful. And now, what we have here now, so if I click on next, you will see it's telling me that what? Zero record imported. Now, always pay attention to this. Anytime you see zero record imported, mean that what? It will not what? Import those records. So something is wrong with the format of that data. So which means that if you run, if you refresh now, we are going to load another data. Now you can see that it has what? A table under it. So let's say I want to check whether records are actually there or whether it was just a mere error. So I will now say what? Rise. I'll now say select, which is part of the code we have written before. Select all from, what's the table name now? New. Table name is what? Is new. So if I run it, you see that what? It calls out only the headers, but there are no what? Record under it. So now I have to go and check what is wrong, whether the format of the data
is not supported. Now, let me go back and try another data just to confirm it. What was that folder again? Okay. So let me open this very one. So I'm just want to troubleshoot and know whether the problem is from that data. So if I'm able to get this one, then I will now know that it's from that data. So Control C, Control N, Control V. So what I'm going to do to resolve issues like this at times might be the format that the data came with. So maybe you could not interpret it, just drop the record. So to be on the safer side, just come here and say what? Clear format, so that you'll be sure that nothing will alter the original format. So let me save it as CSV as well into that same folder. And then let me save it as book, and then change it to this. So let me check what is happening here. Some features might be lost if you save worksheets in this, okay? So this is another avenue for us to go through the process again. So I'm still loading. I just want to be sure if I'm still in that database. So I'm still there. Then right click on the table again. Select import, browse book. Next, let's check the type.
Higher date is showing integer.
Where is it?
Higher date.
The dates are showing integer. The hired dates.
Higher date. Let me look for this.
Yes, after grade, it's showing integer.
Then which other one again? That should be all these ones that are showing integer. We have to change them to double, because I'm sure that we have, in case we have decimal units.
Okay.
So we ought to have also changed the header, maybe add underscore in between, but let me just proceed, since we just want to confirm what is wrong with the other data. All these ones, I'm changing them to double in case I have double number with decimal units will be accommodated. I think the rest are text. ID. I think this one we should have numbers. I don't know how we record it. Let me just go with this first. And then let's import. So also confirm we are having a 0 recorded. Okay, so what we are going to do now is, in that conversion is, let me try something. I just want to find out where the error is. Let me go back to the data. This was the original one. Let's say I remove this sheet. So let's say I'm moving this one salary 2.
Do you have any CSV formats? Let me see. I think this is the only CSV format here. Okay. Salary 2. So I want to try something. I'm not going to tamper with the changing of the time. I'm suspecting something. Let me just confirm. Salary 2. So I want to try something. I don't want to tamper with this. Let me see how that will go out. Okay, you can see that it's taking some time now. Taking some time. Let me see. So which means that you are going to change the data type in SQL. So let me import. Good. So you can see that we have 150. So this is a very good experience in case you are loading and you are having this issue of zero record. Load everything, which means that you are going to change the data type from SQL. Now let's finish. Okay, so now let's refresh. So let's write an SQL. I want to view the list of table under what? That data DB first. So let me write SQL statement to display list of tables in data DB. So remember, we say show. That is after you are in that table, after using the table, before you write this code. Show tables. So if I run it, good. These are all the table that we have created here. So now I want to view record from salary 2. Salary 2. So I'll say select, just to confirm if you have all the record here. Select all record from salary 2. So perfect. Perfect. Now you have all your records. But remember that one more thing, that in this case now, you now start renaming, since we couldn't format it over there. But it would have been better you work on this one with word space, like this basic space salary. You are going to have issue when you start performing your main analysis. That is why it's advisable that you will have edited them over there, or you now come here and start using that command that we used the other time. This is this particular command, rename, to solve that issue. I hope that is clear now.
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Okay.
But sir, please, I want to ask, if you're using this rename command here,
Yeah, using
well, are we
what?
going to be separating? If I use the rename command, if I want to use rename command here, are we going to be separating the comma, or we're going to be doing it one by one like this?
Okay, what we are asking now is that if you want to rename
column here in SQL, yes.
You have to take them one after the other.
Hey.
Yes, you just copy this. You just copy this. You just change it like that. Then you execute all the code at once. You just copy this line like this.
Okay.
You paste it. You just edit everything. Then you highlight
Edit
all of
and
them.
run everything.
And then run everything. I hope that is clear. I would have loved some of us are doing all these things in the class. So it's only one person in this class that have confirmed that attempt to assignment. The rest of you, from one story to another. That's why sometimes I'm scared running through too many things at the same time. It would have been better as we are doing it now. I pause for some time, we try it, then we continue. That would have been the best way. Because if I say I should run through everything now, you assure me that you practice. By Friday now, by the time I start asking how many people have practiced, might be only one person that will submit the assignment, which is not encouraging. Should we still proceed? Are you assuring me that you are going to practice before the next class? Or I should stop
Yes,
here
sir.
so I can go and master this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we will, by God's grace.
So I should continue, right?
Yes.
All right. So now that we have been able to load our data here, let us quickly correct some of these things. Let's correct some of these things so that, let me see if I can correct the ones that I'm going to work with. Control C. So I just want to edit some of the headers. Before I even do that, remember I just told us that where you are having issue of converting the data while loading. So how do you now do it here? It's part of the code that I've already executed, but let me just do it again. So you are going to say describe. Remember we just executed describe now. Describe salary 2. You are going to say describe salary 2. So when it calls this like this, you can see that what you have here now. So that means you are going to use what? Alter. You're going to use alter to do that. Because this one will only show you that, oh, this one is test 2, or that one is test. So you're going to pop back to that alter that we have run before. So you can go back there and see how you can sort it out. So what I wanted to do is, let me just correct few headings. How do I know? Okay, I have to run this. I have to run this again so that I can be seeing the headers. Okay. So here, alter table name here, change to what? Salary 2. Salary 2. Color, the first one I'm modifying, which I'm going to work with. I have department. Let me modify basic salary. Basic salary the way it is. Basic space salary. So you see the issue here now. Because there is space, but I'm going to show you what you will do, which you will have corrected from Excel. So here, this one should be edited to basic salary. I want to merge them together. So now, how am I going to do this? You are going to use the inverted command. Under your escape button, you see that slanted kind of apostrophe there. So you use it to envelop this. That is how you correct it. You put it in a string. Sometimes it works with normal vertical string, but if it doesn't work with that, use this inverted one, where you have this issue of space in between, just to allow you to execute it. Now, let me copy this code. Control C and paste this. What is this telling me? Just hover on it. Okay, so let me go see whether that should be possible. The one we are changing now It's not possible at once. We have to do it one after the other. I just need one more. Let's see, wardrobe allowance. It's not the way it is in your data set. Space. This one is changing to, let's say, WA. So here we have to add a comma. I think it's because of that comma. Sorry. We did not close it. We add a comma. I think the comma should be necessary. Let me just see. So let me just execute this too. So if it works, then we can just do it in bulk. If it doesn't, we will take it one after the other. I think it works. So just use comma to separate them. Now let's run the code again. Let's run this particular one. I have already executed it here. So let me display again here just to see it and see if those headers have been modified. Basic salary, okay, corrected. Wardrobe allowance. I thought I put, okay, that's WA. So we have in this case now. Good. So we have been able to adjust the color. Now we want to go into what we call filtering or selection analysis. Filtering. And this one without condition. So the way we are going to progress is that we look at general filtering query statements, and then we'll now advance to using single criteria. And then from single criteria, we'll now go into using multiple criteria. So that is how we are going to go. So let's start with, so the topic now, I will just do a little bit of this, and then we'll continue from here in the next class. So now we are starting with SQL filtering / data selection query statements. Query statement. So the first question, the first task given to us here is, let me take this so that we can see the outcome. The first task here is write an SQL query statement to view all record. We have already executed that one. Now, we have to write an SQL query statement to select only employees ID, grade, and basic salary. So which means that we are not going to see all this. So we'll have this same table return, but when it returns, we will only see employees, we will only see what? Basic salary and what? Status. Just 3 columns. I think let me take it for one first, and then we'll now go for multiple. So which means that we are asked to write SQL statement to select only employee ID from which table? What's the name of the table? Salary 2. Single column. So now, remember that we are not selecting all. So we are going to say select. This is the syntax. Well, let me use comments. Syntax. So the syntax is select. We are not selecting all. Select, so we'll not bring this, because once you bring in this, except you are going to interrupt it with a conditional statement. Once you bring in this asterisk, it means we are saying all. But this time around, we are not selecting all. So for that, you now mention the name of the column after that select, which is what? Employees ID, the way it is.
So employee, that is employ, that is how it is. Employ space ID. So we are having that same issue. Okay, I think it selected it right, but admin it did not select it right. What you will have done is to put it in that word, inverted word, apostrophe. Please, you need to understand that. Now, well, let me proceed whether it will later throw the error. Now, select this, then before you now say from the table. The table name is salary 2. Then I'll end it. So if I run it now, you see that it throws error. Look at it here. And they say what? Select employee ID from this. And what is the error here? They said what? Unknown column. So I expected it to underline it with what? Red color, red line, but it acted as if everything is all right. Meanwhile, everything is not all right. So let me use that logic, put the whole of this in this inverted, and then let's run it again. And then we see that what we now have the information called out. I hope that is clear. In case you are having that issue, just put it in what? That comment. Sorry, that inverted string. Okay, let me get a response if that is clear. This is query statement for selecting one column a record from your table. I hope that is clear.
Yes, it is.
Okay, now let's write for multiple attribute selection. So the question here is that you write SQL query statements to select multiple attributes or column. So what is the task here? Write SQL query statements to select employee ID, comma, basic salary, comma, so that will be departments. So the first thing, let me run this particular, so that I'll be able to view all the, headers. So let me run this line of code just to allow me view the headers. So coming back here, our query statement is going to be select. Now the first one is employee. That is employee space ID. So put it in the string. Then you put a comma. Then the next one is which order do I want to follow? Okay, let me follow department. The way department is, comma. The next one is basic salary, the way it is, basic, I think they are together. Salary. Okay, so let's say we want to add WA, which is wardrobe allowance. And once you are done mentioning all the column, the last one, you don't put comma, you just space. And then you now say from the table, which is what? Salary 2. And then you end it. And then you execute. So you can say that with this, you have only those specified column what record selected. Let me also get a response if we are following. I hope that explanation is clear. Make sure you are taking note of the syntax. Can I get a response from one person, please? I will just run one additional one and then I will stop there. Then you go and master this. Let me get a response at least for one person. Are we still following?
Sir, we are following, sir.
Okay. So now, the one we want to run now is this. Because when you check this now, you call all the records under what? This specified field names. For example, now, I want to call this same record, but I want to see only employees in marketing department. So you are going to display this same column, employee ID, department, basic salary, wardrobe allowance, but under this department, I should see only what? Marketing. I don't want to see other departments. So here we are introducing single criteria data filtering, so that the next class will now look at multiple criteria. So let me title it. Here is SQL filtering. SQL filtering statements for single, or let's say what, with single criteria. Single criteria. And what is the task? The task is write SQL query statements to fetch or select only employees from marketing departments, comma, return only. Let me go to the next line so that we can see it. Return only employee ID, departments, basic salary, and WPA. Sorry, WA. So how do we answer that question? So we are going to say this, we are going to say select all. Just get the logic. Select all, but in this case, we are not going to say select all. Let me copy all this to save my time. So the whole of this code will be required. I'll tell you what we'll add to it now. Then, instead of you putting this column, semicolon, you don't put it yet. You delete it because you are not done yet. You go there. You now use where clause because it's a conditional statement. Where, just like if in other programming. Here we use what? Where. So it's another keyword. Where, that is what you want to output those header from that data set where, remember the criteria is what? Department is equals to what? Marketing. So where you call that header the way it is in your data, then you put what? Your equal sign. Now, that department is a string. That market is a string. So you put it in a string. So the way it is in your data set, capital letter what? Marketing. So type it like that. marketing. And then you also, now before you now close it, so that is a syntax. So this is data filtering with single criteria. So if I run this set, these two lines of code to be on the saver side, just highlight and run, you see that what it returned those same what headers, but when you check under department, you have only what marketing record return. I hope that is clear. So this is where I am going to stop. So I was thinking that will be working alongside with me. That's why I wanted to add 30 minutes, but if I go this way now, at the end of the day, there will be a lot of revision in the next class. So I will allow us to go and master this. Please, everybody should get to this point. You can use any data. All the practical we have performed so far, please, to do yourself good, go and stay with them and make sure that you understand them. I hope that is good to go.
Later.
All right. Do we have any question? Any question? We have any question?
None from my side.
Okay, so good night then. When the video gets to you, make sure you go through it. And remember your assignments, we have to replicate everything that we have learned today. Thank you for joining.